Welcome back to the Conservatine. I'm very happy to be joined by a very awesome guest. She is a teenager in the conservative movement, just like me, more specifically the pro-life movement. Um, so I'm welcoming on pro-life advocate and activist Maeve Kitchens. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Do you just want to take a minute to just tell everyone who you are and what you do within the pro-life movement?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Maeve Kitchens. I'm 15 years old and I live in a small, rural town in Northern California. So California is very liberal. So sometimes it's hard to be pro-life activist and a conservative in California. But I've traveled to DC for activism. I have been to our state capitol multiple times, and then I've done some local activism stuff. And then I'm the president and founder of a Students for Life club in my town. And then right now I'm focusing more on local activism things in my town. So, like building personal relationships with women and actually, I'm in the process of starting a pregnancy resource center. So lots of little things like that. And then also social media. I make videos and stuff. So
That's awesome. Where did you start? Like, where did you say, I want to get into this movement? I want to fight for the life for the unborn.
um, it was probably, so I remember, like a lot of people, I remember the exact moment I heard about abortion. And my dad, I heard it mentioned a lot. And so I asked my parents, and they told me, and I was just like horrified from the minute I heard about it. I was disgusted. And honestly, like I didn't really believe it. So I just started researching a lot, and I'm homeschooled. So my mom said, well, if you really care about this, then your sort of creative writing can be about abortion. So I wrote probably a 9-page paper on abortion and, Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, the science behind it. And that just really got me like riled up, I guess, that this is happening. Thousands of lives are being taken every day. So then I still didn't really know what to do. I was probably like 13 at that time. And then I went to the March for Life in Sacramento, California, the first one ever, actually. And I met Students for Life staff there, which Students for Life, if you don't know, is the largest pro-life youth organization in the world. And they encouraged me to start a group and then also start social media. So I, got some friends together and we started a group. And then I started social media. And then from there, I went to the March for Life this year, actually, in January. And then I got involved with Students for Life more. And it's kind of just like gone from there.
That's awesome. Now I want to ask you, there are a lot of other people our age who I believe have this same feelings that we do, when it comes to abortion. How can other people our age get involved in the movement? What can they do to stand up for life?
That's a good question. I think a lot of people, like how I felt, they feel like they're young and they can't really do anything. But in reality, there's so many little things that you can do to be involved and to like stand up for life. Which not everyone's going to be a pro-life activist. Not everyone's going to travel to DC, but just being in support. I think one thing, I mean, I'm a Christian, so like my faith is really important to me. And so if you have a church, um, bringing up that issue to the authorities in your church and praying about it, I think prayer is really powerful. So that's something you can do. But then also, Students for Life is a great organization, and they have so many resources for teens and college students who want to get involved and maybe don't know how. They have training sessions, and I think starting a group kind of sparked everything for me. So I would really encourage you to check out Students for Life. But then also just like having conversations about it, because I think when you have conversations with people who you're in personal relationships with, it can really change hearts and minds on this issue, and it has like a domino effect. And then social media, of course. I think that our, as much as I don't want to say it, like our generation is totally glued to their phones. and they get most of their information from social media.
Right.
So if you can put out the truth, just like you're doing, and I know a lot of other teens who do this, people see it and they respond. And it's really encouraging getting messages like, oh, I didn't know this, or you changed my mind on this. And so social media is also a powerful tool.
Right. So you mentioned we need to just have conversations, right? And I think that includes trying to have conversations with people with a different opinion to try to
Mhm.
inform them um, and kind of learn what they're thinking. But when we have these conversations with specifically like pro-choice people, they love to respond to any pro-life statement with "my body, my choice." It's the most significant, or not the most significant, but the biggest response that they give. So, what is the response that we as pro-lifers can give to them when they make that statement?
Yeah, this argument, I hate this argument because to me it seems so clear that it's not their body, and I don't understand how they could think that way. But I think one of the most common responses I think is so true. Like if that woman who's pregnant, if it was her body, then she would have two heads, she'd have four arms, she'd have two sets of eyes. Like if she was pregnant with a boy, would she be half male? Like that doesn't really make sense. Um, and so I think pointing out the absurdity of it in a kind way, because you don't want to just fight and bash heads, but it's so important. I think lots of people just don't really know the truth and science behind it. Um, I'm kind of thinking through analogy but so if you're on the edge of a cliff, people talk about bodily autonomy, right? And even if it's not your body, someone can't use my body without my consent, right? And there's always in our society there's an extent to bodily autonomy, right? I can swing my arms as much as I want, but if it hits you, that's assault, and that could be charged, right, criminally. But there's an analogy that I heard once where if you're standing on the edge of a cliff and your friend's hanging off and he's gonna fall and he's holding onto your hand, you can't just shoot him in the head because that would be murder, right? And that's what abortion is. There's this baby, and instead of helping the woman through this hard pregnancy and giving this woman resources, instead they're just dismembering the child. Um, and so I really don't think it comes down to bodily autonomy because we truly don't have full bodily autonomy. Um, and the science proves that it's not your body. So it's not your choice to kill the baby.
Right. Thank you for that response. That was awesome. Um, and I think one other really important thing um, to get the message out there, to get more pro-lifers, to get more people aware of the terrible truth behind abortion is to elect pro-life candidates into office, whether it be local, state, or federal governments. So in what ways, because I know you, if I am saying if I know what am I trying to say? If I'm correct, you have canvassed for pro-life candidates and you've had that experience. Um, what can we do to try to get more pro-life candidates elected? What can we do to get more pro-life voices into local, state, and federal governments?
Sorry, it cut out there for a second.
Oh,
Um,
you're good.
yeah, so just recently, for the state elections, I campaigned in Las Vegas for some pro-life candidates. And when I was talking to people, I noticed like a large majority of people just don't vote. They might agree with you, but they don't see the importance in voting, right? And so extreme, I feel like liberals vote a lot because they unite over one person. And so I think as conservatives, we should be really trying to unite because so many times we get, held up in, oh, well, we really wanted that person to run or we really wanted this person to get elected. But in reality, that person isn't going to. And so we divide over little things. But abortion is a big issue that we should be uniting over, right? And so I think encouraging people to vote really, I know a lot of family members and friends who are conservative and they didn't vote. And I wish I had talked to them sooner about the election because it's so important. Just in California, Prop 1, which legalized abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy, paid for by the taxpayers, that just was passed. And I was talking to a family member, and she was like, "Oh, I didn't vote. I didn't see the importance in that." And I was like, "What? Like this might not have passed if we had encouraged enough people to vote." So I think there's a bunch of organizations you can volunteer with if you have the time. Um, and canvassing, door knocking, going door to door and having those conversations is really important. But then also just encouraging people to get out and vote and showing them the importance in that.
Right. I think that is really important because we saw in the Georgia Senate race, like
Hmm.
big disappointment, where a very radical pro-abortion uh, pastor, quote unquote, got reelected over Herschel Walker, who's been a pro-life advocate. He advocated for life throughout his whole campaign, and he vowed to fight for the unborn. Um, and I think it comes down to people just didn't vote because I don't believe that there are more people out there that want to murder these innocent babies than people who want life. So I totally agree with you in the fact that we need to get a better voter turnout, and that includes informing people and campaigning for pro-life candidates. The last thing I want to talk to you about is I'm sure you've heard and seen it. I'm sure multiple other people, but people in our generation, like you were saying, they're glued to their phones. They get most of their information from social media. And a lot of the information on social media is can be not truthful. It's not true. And specifically when it comes to abortion, these people will post things that um, get people our age specifically into thinking, oh, these people, these pro-life people are just trying to take away our rights. They don't care about our bodies, all this and that. Um, how can we change that mindset of our generation?
Um, I think education is really important. I've been having opportunities to speak to youth groups and churches, and a lot of the times, Christians are sometimes they're conservative. I feel like the majority of the churches here are mostly conservative, and I think education is really, really powerful. And just spreading the truth on social media. But of course, like I think there's more media against the truth than there is for it right now, unfortunately. So I feel like it comes down to this abortion issue, and I like when I'm speaking to people, I like saying what I do is trying to raise a culture of life, a culture that respects life, and not only a culture that's pro-life, but a culture that respects life across the board. And I think a big uh, problem in our society is that we're so self-focused and we're so selfish. It's all about love yourself first and then love others, and self-care, and you're enough. And I think it's such a toxic environment because if we're so self-focused, I know women who have had abortions and they tell me like, I know it's a human, but this was what's best for me. And that's so selfish, you know? Um, so I think, I don't know how we can change that, but just raising up a culture that instead of focusing so much on ourselves, we're focusing on how we can help others. And that's a biblical principle, I think. But it's just so toxic and you see it all over social media. So I really think that's a problem. But that said, I think that there still is hope. I see our generation, a lot of conservatives are very outspoken, and there's a revolution of young people who are speaking up for the truth, which I think is super cool. And when other peers see that, sometimes conservatives can be quieter because we get lots of backlash. And so when other teams see us speaking up, I think it encourages other people to speak up too. I don't know if that answered your question, but
No, it did. Thank you for that response.
okay.
And thank you for all of your responses to all of these questions. I want to thank you for what you're doing for the pro-life movement and for just our country in general. So thank you for that. And
Mhm.
I hope that we can get more people our age, and not necessarily just our age, but people all over this country. It doesn't matter, like male, female, age, black, white, doesn't matter. We need to unite over this issue and fight for life. So I just want to thank you for coming on and talking with me, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yep. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You too.